Dog Nation, I'm Brandon Adams. Welcome into our Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. We are live here on the field at Mercedes-Benz Stadium where it feels great to be a dog after a major statement to begin the 2022 season as Georgia comes out and wins 49-3 here against the Oregon Ducks here today. And we have a very special way for you to celebrate with us here. And we're going to have a very big show for you here, too. So let me kind of lay out some of the things that are going to be going on, and then I want to show you something really cool here. In just a couple of moments, we're going to talk to former Georgia wide receiver, the former UGA great, Terrence Edwards. He's going to be on hand here today. Really excited about having Terrence's thoughts on what he saw go down between Georgia and Oregon there a moment ago. But not only will we be hearing from Terrence Edwards here today, we hope to hear from Georgia coach Kirby Smart here as a part of today's program, and we hope to hear from all of you there as well. If you'll pay attention to your video comment section, whichever comment section you're part of, at dognation.com or DogNation on YouTube or DogNation on Facebook, you will see a link, and you can click that link. You can join us via Zoom, and over the course of our time here this evening on our Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore, we're going to give you a chance to weigh in on what's going to go down here tonight. So we're really excited about all of that and excited about this here, too. As a part of our Dog Nation postgame show from the field here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, we're going to unveil something brand new with our friends from 7-6 Apparel. How about a way to celebrate this? Georgia in style, sending the biggest message in the entire country to begin this season with what it does today by whipping up on that number 11 team in the country, the Oregon Ducks, by a final score of 49-3. How about this? From 7-6 Apparel and Dog Nation here, a very special Southern Fried Duck t-shirt with the score from tonight's game. So if you have great memories of what happened here today, and why would you not, how about celebrating that with our friends from 7-6 Apparel? You can go to their website, 76.com, and you can find more about that. You can actually purchase that shirt today. So we're going to send you there to 76.com for more on that. You'll see the website there on your screen about how you can get there. And you can get a chance to get this great T-shirt and be a part of what's going to be just a unbelievable celebration here as Georgia really lets it be known what it's all about here for the 2022 season. We're incredibly excited about that. As we said before, we're going to have Terrence Edwards stopping by in a moment. We're going to talk to him here directly. We're going to talk in just a couple of moments there as well to all of you joining us here as part of our call-in show. This is a little bit of a maiden voyage for us on this. We played around with this and tested this the other day, and it seemed to work pretty well, and hopefully it'll go well here, there, today, too. But this is kind of a journey we're going to be on throughout the entirety of the season. The fact of the matter is we're kind of laid back here and relaxed, so we're simply going to have fun and sort of hope for the best. And I know that today Georgia fans had fun with everything they saw from this game. An incredible performance from UGA, an incredible time. And as I said before, if you go to 76.com, you can go ahead and get that great T-shirt that celebrates that 49-3 win that Georgia gets today over Oregon. So that's exciting. Also, we appreciate our friends at the UGA Bookstore for being back a part of our post-game show here this year. Of course, always happy to have them. And don't forget that as we're celebrating and happy here today, we'll also have a chance to be happy about being back in Athens next week for the home opener for these Georgia Bulldogs. And obviously, your chance to be a part of a really fun day that day there at the UGA Bookstore. So I hope you'll stop by the UGA Bookstore next week for the home opener, because next Saturday, legendary former coach Vince Dooley, the former quarterback Buck Bellew, and also great former dog Malcolm Mitchell are going to be on hand signing autographs, signing their books, and they're going to be there from 1:30 to 3:30 next week. So make sure you check that out at the UGA Bookstore. And of course, we'll be there after the game there as well. And how great was it before the game today to see former Georgia coach Vince Dooley, the legendary athletic director as well. So many great years of service to this program. And how about him today celebrating his 90th birthday right here on the field? Great scene there before the game with all of that. As that goes down, that was truly a terrific thing to be able to see. So you can obviously see more of that. Many of you in the stadium got a chance to notice that yourself. So that was exciting. This win for Georgia was phenomenal today. And everything about this kind of speaks to, I think, what most of us sort of expected to happen, that there is this sort of natural tendency to want to hype up a game like this. There's a natural tendency to want to kind of talk it to death in terms of, what it might be and sort of view it from every angle. And we told you before that there's not necessarily an anti-UGA bias in place in some respects, but there is this, kind of desire to see, a team like this, Oregon team that maybe has a chance to make the season just sort of seem more interesting and maybe make you feel like that somebody's got a chance to at least make the playoff more dramatic than maybe it has been, with the thought that teams like Alabama and certainly the reigning national champion Georgia, maybe even Ohio State, were easy kind of shoo-ins for the playoff. I think a lot of folks were hoping the Pac-12 might be able to send a little bit of a message today, and obviously today that message was not sent. That's not the way this goes down. Georgia kind of reminded you today that the new boss the same as the old boss for right now in college football. So that's incredibly exciting, and it's a huge day for Stetson Bennett, getting a lot of different receivers involved, and you saw the Georgia defense come out and have a big game, and yes, I know, I'd spent a lot of time talking to you on Dog Nation Daily over the course of the last few days about my belief that this would be a shutout for the Georgia defense. You saw me predict that, and if not for what I thought was a little bit of a soft call on Kamari Lassiter, I know you're not technically not supposed to do the body slam tackle anymore. I realize that's kind of out of the game now for player safety reasons, but if not for that kind of very soft sort of, frankly, Pac-12 style, decision on the part of the officials to give him 15 yards on that. If not for that, I do believe I would have gotten my win on that. I do believe I would have gotten my shutout had that indeed been the case. So didn't quite get the 0 points, but I guess I'll take 49-3 here for this evening, and we'll certainly invite you to be a big part of this throughout the night here on our Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore, and we're going to have a great time. In fact, before we get ready to bring on Terrence Edwards, I believe we'll have Terrence here coming up in just a couple of minutes. We'll also give you a chance to weigh in there too. So go ahead and get lined up in our chat rooms, if you want to call them that, whether it be the YouTube comment section, the Facebook comment section, dognation.com there as well. You can find the link to be a part of the discussion there, and you can kind of join us, and we're going to try to go through as many of these as we can here this evening. So that means when you're on air, we'll try to be kind of quick with that out of respect for those who are waiting. And if you are waiting, our encouragement to you is to wait just a little bit longer, and we'll see if we can get you on here this evening, get you off, and give you a chance to share your thoughts here on Georgia football. We'll also hope to hear from Georgia coach Kirby Smart coming up in just a few minutes there as well. So while we're waiting on Terrence Edwards, Michael, if you can hear me back in the comment section, if we're waiting on Terrence to join us, and he should be ready to go here in a couple of minutes, we'll go ahead and start lining up some of those callers, maybe give folks a chance to weigh in here in just a couple of minutes. I'll also read some calls the old-fashioned way here on our various comment sections at dognation.com and on YouTube and everywhere else for that here tonight. So we'll give all of you a chance to kind of weigh in and share your thoughts on how it goes down for Georgia, getting a big 49-3 win over the Georgia Bulldogs, getting that big win over the Oregon Ducks here today. So happy about that. You can check out 76.com and get the great T-shirt that celebrates all of this. And, of course, we're going to have a great time here tonight. We'll line up your calls. We'll start taking those. I'll also start reading some of your comments there as well. Wyatt Fielden checks in to say those UGA freshmen looking so good today. And I think it is a stern reminder of the depth that's in place for Georgia. I think that when you see Malachi Starks making an interception the way that he did, really setting the tone for the game today, I think there are a lot of people who are sort of hoping that maybe this would be, a Georgia team that just simply lost a lot last year. 5 first-rounders off the roster going on in the NFL draft, 15 draft picks overall, many of those, of course, on the defensive side. I think there were a lot of folks who were hoping that level of attrition would just simply be too much for UGA, but it's not. Georgia today stands up and shows a lot of those young guys off. You saw, freshmen getting involved in offense. You saw the big play early in the game from Malachi Starks. It was quite a statement indeed. Surfer Boy 3000 checks in on YouTube to say we are loaded, and I would say that is indeed the case. This looked like a Georgia team that was very much loaded, and it looked like a Georgia team sending a very big message today about what a force to be reckoned with it's going to be for the remainder of the season. This was, after all, the highest-rated team in the preseason polls on the Georgia schedule. Georgia won't play another team ranked in the preseason polls for 11 weeks. Now, in that span of time, there's obviously a chance that a ranked team emerges. I think Tennessee, for instance, is the kind of opponent that Georgia could play, and it could be ranked when they play them. And also last year, we saw some surprises. A team like Kentucky, for instance, or Arkansas, not necessarily expected to be a top 25 opponent when that game was played, but that's how it worked out. So sometimes the schedule can provide you some surprises. But ultimately, with Georgia, as it stands right now, we knew it would be a manageable schedule, and for a lot of people, they said, hey, get past Oregon, see what happens after that. Well, not only did Georgia get past Oregon, they sailed past Oregon to the tune of 49-3 here today, and we're talking to you about that as a part of our Dog Nation postgame show. Bubby Dean enjoying the fact that a little earlier I talked about retiring Bo Nix' jersey. 4 tries for Nix against the Georgia Bulldogs, and 0 for 4 in all of those, including today, first time with a new team, the Oregon Ducks, but the result very much the same for him. So, indeed, that is the case. Georgia fans have a lot to be happy about when it comes to Bo Nix and that situation and just how dominant Georgia has been over Nix during his career. That's an exciting thing to see, and today was certainly an example of that. We'll get more of your comments here and continue to kind of roll right on through here. Travis Goff says, do you think that Georgia will be ranked number 1 now? I don't know what will happen, but I do believe what should happen is Georgia should be the number 1 team in the country. You can make a case that because it's the national champion, it maybe should have been the number 1 team already, just simply because, as the old Ric Flair line would state, to be the man, you've got to beat the man. Well, that's obviously not the way the pollsters thought. And we told you during our show, Dog Nation Daily, a lot that, listen, if you want to make a case for Ohio State being ahead of Georgia, you can certainly understand where the case would come from. And obviously, if you want to make a case for Alabama being the preseason number 1, just given the fact they got, Bryce Young and Will Anderson, you can make the case. The issue here is not that there was a case to be made for somebody else. The issue was the fact that it was such a unanimous opinion that somehow everybody seemed to agree that there's no way that Georgia belonged in the same field with Alabama or Ohio State here in 2022. That's obviously not what today's result would have indicated for you. That's not that way in the least. So we'll take more of your comments. We'll read these at Facebook and YouTube and at DogNation.com. We'll hear from Terrence Edwards coming up in just a moment. Terrence is going to be delayed here a bit, but we'll get Terrence coming up in just a bit there as well. And we'll also take your calls. And so, Michael, if we got some calls up and running and ready to go, you let me know, and we're fired up on that. We'll start taking those. And if you're tuning in saying, oh, I've never seen you all do this in a post-game show before, this is your time to do that for the very first time. We're doing this in at least a post-game setting. So if you'll look at the various comment sections across our videos, you'll see a link. I believe you can also find this at Dog Nation on Twitter there as well. You'll see a link to get involved and be a part of this tonight, and we will join you and celebrate a blowout, dominant win here for these Georgia Bulldogs today, and it is a great thing to be able to see. Let's check in with William Green, our first commenter here for today. William, go ahead live here on the Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Give us your thoughts on what you saw today from Georgia against Oregon.
Almost perfection. I think 9 for 9 on third downs. Stetson Bennett's
and make sure you,
efficiency.
Go ahead. Now I can hear you. Go ahead.
I think there's so much to look forward to as everything gets better. And the offensive line, while not perfect, was close to it. The receivers were perfect. Every piece of what Todd Monken wanted to do was insanely well planned and organized. And I just want to put this out in context. Oregon is a top 7 most talented roster per 24/7 and is possibly the best defense we will face for majority of the season. I just want to frame that as well for people.
William, I think that's a great comment. I appreciate your call here today as a part of our Dog Nation postgame show, that when you look at what Oregon is thought to have defensively, whether you measure it by recruiting rankings, whether you just measure it by the names that many of us are very well aware of, Noah Sewell, Justin Flo, these are talented players. And for Georgia to go out and establish what it did today on offense, we'll give you some of the stats as we continue here this evening. But for Georgia to do offensively what it did, did not punt until the late stage of this game. 7 drives, 7 touchdowns. Stetson Bennett involving a multitude of receivers here, getting Kenny McIntosh involved in the offense in a big way there. Looking at all the ways in which the tight ends were also kind of ingrained into all of this. I think that you're right when you say that Georgia, in addition to holding Oregon to 3 points defensively, Georgia made a very big statement on the offensive side of the ball today there as well. And in particular, it's that offensive line who I think today played an incredible game. Stetson Bennett had all day to throw, and Georgia wanted to run it. There were holes to be had everywhere. And the rhythm and the pace with which Georgia played itself at the beginning of this game, I think you got to give a lot of credit to the offensive line on that. You're happy to see Tate Ratledge healthy enough to play, but also the way in which Georgia kind of rotated a lot of guys, not waiting very long to get Amarius Mims involved, and then getting Warren McClendon some snaps there at left tackle, showing that it's got some depth and feeling pretty comfortable about playing multiple guys, and in fact feeling the need to play multiple guys here during the season and during this game today. I thought of all the various position groups, it was that Georgia offensive line that maybe made one of the biggest statements of them all. I think that's a really good point. Appreciate you weighing in. We'll now give Hugh Nash a turn to welcome in to the Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Hugh, we appreciate your time here today, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the Dogs and the Ducks. What did you think about this dominant performance, Hugh?
Go Dogs! I just want to say, DA, that my prediction almost came true. I got the pick, but not the 6 from Christopher Smith.
That's right.
Yeah. No.
What else did you see today, Hugh?
Well, I think obviously it's very impressive. The offense looked great. I can't wait to see some more Eric Gilbert. Starks looks amazing. I can't wait till these pups grow up and get more experience.
No, I think you're absolutely right about that, and I appreciate the call, Hugh, and I think you mentioned a couple of interesting names. You're right. Eric Gilbert doesn't really get involved in today's game until the late stages. We had heard some chatter in recent days, and I think we kind of, we talked about this a little bit on Dog Nation Daily, that there had obviously, Darnell Washington had such a good summer. Pretty much anybody you talked to had kind of really said that this would have been a very good offseason leading into a preseason for Darnell Washington. It's not really a surprise that he was a part of the game plan here today. And obviously, if you're getting Washington involved early, Brock Bowers going to get his. How much room would there be for a guy like Eric Gilbert? And it seems like Gilbert is a guy that's, trying to make his case for playing time. And right now, what is just simply a very competitive situation, with this roster right now. If you're bringing a guy like that as one of your depth tight ends late in the game, then obviously you're talking about a pretty good situation overall. And that's what Georgia kind of found itself in right there. Clearly, Malachi Starks had a really big game today, too. That interception was, I think, a pivotal turning point and really a signal in the early stage of this game that simply put, Georgia would not be playing around with Oregon today at all, coming out and ready to dominate there and that. You also mentioned the name Christopher Smith. Smith, one of a couple of Georgia defensive backs that found interceptions today. There were other opportunities for interceptions on Nix, but that's a couple of guys that did find that. And that was a great thing to see. And it's an incredible bookend to the beginning of last season, where Smith also had something similar happen, the pick six that led to the win against Clemson. Georgia didn't quite need that quite as badly today, but once again, it was still a major statement made by the Georgia defense because of the Smith pick. And, of course, also you're very well aware that at the end of the game today, or near the end of the game today, Smith involved in a big hit, a good, clean play, but a big hit nonetheless, and appeared to lead the game with a shoulder injury there at that point in time. Hopefully we'll get a little bit of an update on exactly what's going on with Christopher Smith as it relates to that. I remarked to somebody I was sitting next to in the press box that, and listen, I'm not advocating for targeting things like that, but what's funny is that if Smith, I believe, had gone ahead and committed like a targeting type foul on that he actually would have maybe, prevented his own injury, but obviously would have put the Oregon player in greater harm's way. And so you understand why player safety is a part of this. But in a lot of ways, because Smith went low as a way of connecting with the would-be receiver below his shoulders around his number area there, by doing that, Smith kind of put his shoulder in a little bit more jeopardy, at least it seemed like to me. So an injury situation, he's clearly dealing with that, and we'll see what kind of happens after this. But obviously, if Smith is a little bit banged up, which at least appeared to our eyes that he might be, we don't know how serious it is, of course, but if he is a little bit banged up because of the nature of the Georgia schedule for the next few weeks, they can kind of take their time working him back in. And unfortunately, this might be one of those things, as if you had this kind of similar sports injury, shoulder injury is very common in sports, it might become kind of a pain tolerance thing for Smith a bit. So we'll be watching that and see where it goes. We also hope to hear from Georgia coach Kirby Smart as our Dog Nation postgame show kind of rolls on here tonight there as well. One of our great friends is Kathy Green. She's always a great commenter on our Dog Nation shows, and now she joins us to speak to us live here on the Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Kathy, thanks for joining us. How'd you feel about those dogs today?
I am thrilled. I am absolutely on top of the world, like all of us. You got to be. You got to be thrilled. I mean, what about Stetson Bennett? Getting out there and just finally really shutting up all the naysayers. How can you honestly say Stetson Bennett is not a quality quarterback now after today? You can't. You just can't. You have no argument whatsoever. So I was there at G-Day. I liked what I saw at G-Day. I felt like we were going to have a really strong defense. Today, what I feel like I saw was another potential national championship caliber team. Period. End of story. We don't have a lot of weaknesses to be coming off of our very first game of the season. We are really playing at a level that I would expect to see us playing mid-season. So it's exciting. It's really exciting if we can stay healthy and continue on this trajectory. It's very, very, the sky's really the limit for this team. I'm thrilled. I'm just excited. That's all kidding. Loved it.
Kathy, it's a great call, and I appreciate your commentary, and I think you're spot on there on both those regards. I do think today was a big day for Stetson Bennett, and you're right. No matter what seems to happen for Stetson, he's always kind of a lightning rod for conversation, and part of that's just related to being a quarterback, right? That when you are a quarterback, you're always going to be kind of the focal point of a lot of folks' attention, and so some of what happens around Bennett is just natural tendency to debate how quarterbacks are playing. We do this in the NFL. We do this in college football. A lot of us who follow high school football, we may even do that on Friday nights there as well. Quarterbacks just get sort of the lion's share of the attention for the good and for the bad reasons. But in Bennett's case, as you pointed out, it always seems to be something. There always seems to be this sort of lingering debate that kind of goes beyond just the natural arguments that go on related to quarterbacks. And if that has been a discussion, I think on the basis of the way that Bennett played today, he gave a much larger data point to consider. That as he comes back to Georgia for his final season, after having been on top of the college football world a year ago and now coming back to UGA for that swan song, that final campaign, I think Bennett made a major statement. And there are people who, have said a lot of things about him, and, maybe at times Bennett opened the debate and the discussion based on how he played in any given moment. But if that was ever true before, on this particular day, this is clearly a very strong day, a very strong performance for Bennett, setting a record, his personal best for passing yards in a career, doing that on a national stage against the number 11 team in the country with the eyes of the world watching the way it was 3:30 here in this opening game. I think you're absolutely right about that. And I think your statement about the Georgia defense is spot on there as well. That is a massive statement because, we've heard from a lot of Georgia folks, even people connected to this Georgia program, essentially concede that, yes, eventually there'd be some regression. Eventually you had to, understand the idea that there would probably be, more points allowed here this year. And who knows what the rest of the season holds. Maybe that's indeed going to be the case. But we do know this for today. This Georgia defense today was every bit as good as it had been previously. That's the kind of statement that Georgia made, that the 2022 version of the Georgia defense for today just as good as it was in 2021. This is our Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. We're going to get a chance to talk to Terrence Edwards here in just a moment. We'll keep taking your calls there as well about what you saw from the game here today. A fun way to be able to do this, reacting to all of this here live right here on the field. I also want to, before we bring on Terrence, though, give a shout-out to Stetson Bennett. You heard some great stuff there a moment ago from Kathy on the subject. In addition to that, just a really incredible thing to see Stetson play the way they did today. In fact, we're going to make him our player of the game here, presented by the Wilson PC attorneys. Of course, great folks who do great things for you. And in Atlanta, you know this. Things can sort of happen out of nowhere. Well, when it comes to our friends at the Wilson PC personal injury attorneys, they understand all of that. And so when something unexpected happens to you, you can reach out to Wilson PC personal injury attorneys at 888-838-YOU-WIN or visit them online at atlantahappens.com, because in the streets here, things are just kind of unpredictable. So you need a lawyer you can trust. That's what Wilson PC is all about. It's a friend that's got your back with the expertise of someone who's seen it all. That's what the Wilson PC is all about. So you can call them at 888-838-YOU-WIN. That's 888-838-YOU-WIN. Or you can check them out online at atlantahappens.com, which is actually a really funny website. Good stuff from our friends at Wilson PC, attorneys at law, taking really good care of you when you find yourself in kind of a personal injury situation, when you're involved in an accident, and you want to get what you deserve. They got you covered on all of that. All right, with that said, we've got some great stuff going on here. As I kind of play around my earpiece just a little bit, apologies for all of that. But here on our Dog Nation post-game show, I'm live at the field. A guy who was also in the stadium today, had a chance to see how this play out, was the great former Georgia wide receiver Terrence Edwards. We're going to bring him on. If you're on hold, stay where you are. We'll continue to take your comments here with me and Terrence as we react to what went on. But Terrence, you know the game as a former player, as a coach, and you obviously love your alma mater. Have you ever seen them look better to start the season than they did today? 49-3 against the number 11 team in the country. What's your reaction to what you just saw inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium a few minutes ago?
I hate to use the word stunned because I thought we would play well, but I never thought in the wildest dreams that we would go down and not punt. We'd go 9 for 9 on third down. That was a great performance from a team that was looking to solidify themselves as a team to beat in this upcoming football season. That was a statement. That was a statement to the world that Coach Smart said we will not be hunted. We will be the hunters. So, man, that was a dominating performance, and there's not too many things you can say about Stetson's performance. It was a almost perfect performance from a quarterback that I believe in. I think he's going to continue to show people that you need to believe in this young man, because he's just won Georgia's first national championship, and people said that it was the defense. Now it's on him to now be the guy, be the leader, be the driving force of this team.
I think that's exactly right. And to me, Terrence, Stetson looked incredibly poised today because obviously he showed you what he's capable of doing with his legs, keeping a lot of plays alive, giving himself a chance to find receivers, but also the way in which that when given time to throw, just sort of picking apart this Oregon defense and getting Ladd McConkey involved in a big way, getting A.D. Mitchell involved in a big way. You know, to me, Stetson looked like a guy. People forget this, or at least maybe it's not fully realized that he's actually older than Jake Fromm is. You know, Jake Fromm's been gone for this program now for a couple of years, but Bennett's actually older than Fromm is, and so that's a level of season, that's a level of experience that Stetson brings to the table. And today, Terrence, he looked like a guy who is from that 2017 class, who has been here and then left to go play some junior college ball and then come back. You know, he's been here for a long time, and he sort of played today like a guy who's been here for a long time. I thought he looked incredibly comfortable all day long.
Right. I thought so, too. And this is a word that I continue to use, BA, when I'm on the show, is trust. You can see how much the Georgia coaching staff trusts Stetson tonight. Throwing the ball, I think it was 31 times tonight. He looked very comfortable in the pocket. He never looked rushed. He never looked where he was under pressure. Everything was very comfortable. He knew exactly where to go with the football. You know, Stetson is going to be Stetson with that touchdown to Ladd McConkey. I was like, oh, no, yes. So he's going to give you one of those plays from time to time. But, man, I don't know in Georgia history if I've seen a quarterback ever play like this tonight. When I mean play like this, it was poised. Man, he looked under control, and he understood the assignment.
He understood the assignment, indeed. There's no doubt that is the case. And, Terrence, I know you love catching the football. Obviously, you're the only 1,000-yard receiver in the history of the Georgia program, so you appreciate what it looks like to be a guy on the receiving end of the football. Have you ever seen Georgia, the way it looked tonight, having more guys capable of doing big things when they catch the football? I mentioned McConkey and Mitchell a moment ago. Obviously, the tight ends were a big part of this. The leaping catch, or the leap that Darnell Washington makes after making a catch. We saw Brock Bowers get involved there as well. Kenny McIntosh over 100 yards receiving here tonight. Have you ever seen Georgia look more potent with the weapons, the way that it put those on display here this evening?
And that was the reason why I was kind of like, I don't think we will have 1,000-yard receiver, because we have so many weapons, and Coach Mike can do a great job of rolling players in different situations and different formations and spreading the football around. I mean, you just look at it. You know, we threw for over 400 yards today, and Kenny McIntosh ended up with, over 100, and I think Ladd was 70-something. So the ball is going to be spread around so much, and you never know who is going to be that main target. We all know Brock Bowers is the main target, but when a defense really don't have a main guy to try to take away, yes, they're going to try to take away Brock, but Ladd is another guy that is a great pass catcher. A.D. McConkey, you got Kearis Jackson, you got Darnell Washington, you got Kenny McIntosh out the backfield. So I know people have worried and talked about the receivers that we're recruiting. We're not getting these elite guys. I'll take those guys that we have out there any day of the week if they're going to go and play like that week in and week out. So I trust the guys that we have, and shoot, send me 5 more Ladd McConkeys that are 2-stars, and I'd be happy with them.
No, I think that's exactly right. And I think when you see the offense humming the way that it is right now, the recruiting profile of whoever's playing receiver for UJ, that may not matter. It certainly didn't seem to matter today. McConkey was getting whatever he wanted for the most part out there. And I mentioned Kenny McIntosh a moment ago there, too. When you think about a guy that we had heard so much about throughout the summer and what he was going to be able to do for Georgia, I think he had high expectations coming into today, and I can't imagine somebody like that could have lived up to those expectations more so than McIntosh did. What did you see from him? Obviously kind of living into the legacy that James Cook kind of established of being a very dangerous weapon in the passing game. How impressed were you with what you saw from Kenny McIntosh here today?
Very impressed. And the other day while we was on the air and before I came on, I kind of predicted that he would have around 120 all-purpose yards. And I thought he would have about 80 rushing and about 40 receiving. He went over 100, and I think he had about 30 to 40 rushing yards. So that's his game. That's his game. He's a very adequate pass catcher out the backfield. He got natural hands. I hate any linebackers trying to cover him because he's a great route runner out of the backfield. So that's a dimension that he brings to the table. And this doesn't surprise me because I thought he would have about the all-purpose yards or the yard from scrimmage that he had. So this doesn't surprise me because we saw him making plays last year. Now he's the lead back. He's the feature back. So I anticipate we see more of this from him.
All right, Terrence, stay where you are. We're going to have more from you coming up. Also, we'll continue to take your calls. So here's the way this works. This is like, the great call-in shows you've driven home from games and listened to over the years, except we're doing with new technology via Zoom. So however you're watching us at dognation.com or on YouTube or on Facebook, if you look at the comment section in there, you see a link. Click on the Zoom link. Be a part of what we're doing here tonight. Now, when we bring you on the air, make sure you unmute yourself so we can hear you, and we'll give you a chance to weigh in on what's happening here. And if you are on hold, go ahead and wait for us, and we'll get you on. We're going to try to run through as many of these calls as we can here this evening and let folks weigh in with their thoughts on Georgia and its 49-3 win against the Oregon Ducks here a moment ago. And by the way, from our friends at 7-6 Apparel, don't forget the great Southern Fried Duck shirt is out there. A great way to celebrate a big win over Oregon here tonight from 7-6 Apparel. So if you go to 76.com, you can buy that and show everybody what Georgia did in week one. The score is on the shirt from our friends at 7-6 Apparel, so make sure you check that out. More with Terrence Edwards coming up here on our Dog Nation postgame show from the UGA Bookstore. Also, your calls as well. In fact, we have one of those ready to go. Our buddy Bryce Dixon ready to weigh in right now. Bryce always weighing in on these Dogs. Bryce, what'd you think about UGA today?
Man, that was amazing, man. I'll tell you right now, just watching Stetson go out there and overperform what I thought he would have did, but just watching them all click together and the offense working, it was just amazing. And then utilizing all the tight ends with each other with Bowers, had a little bit of Delp in there. Then you had Washington, but I'm just ready to see the offense get going because this is just the beginning of what we're going to see. The defense didn't really seem like they stepped down any at all. And I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing.
Bryce, I think very impressed, a great way to see that. And, in a lot of ways, this seemed like the continuation of what every other Georgia game was last year, where late in the game, the only drama whatsoever was whether or not the Georgia backups would yield a touchdown late. That's what we spent so much time kind of waiting and watching to see last year. And here we are once again. It's the same kind of thing here again today. Terrence, in a lot of ways, this really seemed like a continuation of the 2021 season. Now, who knows if the Georgia defense always plays as well as it did today, but today it was the same Georgia defense as always with an offense that seemed to have even more firepower. In a lot of ways, it was really the best of both worlds, wasn't it, Terrence?
Most definitely. One thing that I saw today that I didn't see last year, that I knew the rotation from the defensive line standpoint, they would sub every few plays, but I saw them rotate 7 of the front 7, like linebackers, all of them. So they was rotating, getting fresh guys in. That's a testament of the way that Georgia has recruited. That's a testament of the preparation to rotate that many guys, keeping those guys fresh. And, man, I keep talking about it, and I said it earlier, Malachi Starks is on his way to be a superstar. A superstar.
Yeah, Terrence, I think that's such a good point that this is a guy, and I know you know the high school game, Terrence, and I know you know what a special high school player looks like because you've worked with them, you're a coach now, you do this on an individual basis. The thing about Malachi is it's not just the athleticism, because ultimately what makes you a really good player at this level, especially one that becomes a good player quickly, it's about how well you acclimate to the college game and how well you kind of handle the bumps and bruises that come your way. And Malachi was a big player on offense at Jefferson High School, a big player on defense there as well. Georgia has wanted to use him exclusively with that safety spot right now. And there is no doubt he's responding to that. And there's no doubt that when you hear the interviews, when you hear him talk, when you see those things going on, there is no doubt that he's got the look of a future team leader if he's not already leading by example as a freshman. Terrence, I don't think you can put into words how impressive a guy like Starks is right now. Now, they may need him because you got Christopher Smith banged up, and we don't know how injured he might be. But if you need more depth at safety to get that kind of contribution from a freshman, I just think that's remarkable.
I think so, man. He played beyond his years. We don't get the luxury of watching the film and understand his assignment, but just from watching from the stands, I didn't see any glaring missed assignments from him. He seemed all the way in the right position. I just think that young man has a bright future. Mikael Williams also was in there. I think he was in there for the first place, so he probably listed as a starter. So that tells you a lot about that young man. So the future is bright for these linebackers. I'm gonna tell you, Smile Monday was flying around the ball, and that young fella has some speed from sideline to sideline. So I'm very impressed what we did today, and I can see in a year or so where we are talking about these same guys as in the same breath that we just talked about this 2022 defense, because we have some athletes and some ballers on that side of the ball.
Terrence, before I take some more phone calls, as an athlete, what was your read on the Christopher Smith injury? I know you were in the stadium, so I don't know how many replays of that you've even really been able to see, but it's one of those things where you obviously hope for the best for him, and you're left to wonder if that shoulder might not be something that kind of lingers for him a bit. We hope to get an update from Kirby Smart before our show is done, but as an athlete yourself, what was your read on the Smith injury?
From the beginning, I just thought it was a stinger, just the way he was moving it, running off the field. So I just hope it was anything worse than that, just a stinger. And I was looking at the play, I was like, you could tell that he was very conscious of going low. He was very conscious of not getting a target penalty. That is being taught. That is being taught by Kirby and company, because you can see Chris had a beat on the guy, and he traveled a long distance to get a shot on the guy. He did exactly how you're taught, to go low, and he sacrificed himself for the team.
It's funny, I mentioned this before you joined us. I'm certainly not advocating, a dirty, illegal hit or anything like that. But what I did say, though, Terrence, is had he actually targeted right there, had he gone high for the hit, he's actually probably not injured. It's almost like he put his shoulder in more harm's way, simply on the on the base of the fact that he went low, which is what the rule book requires from you. But if he doesn't do that, he's actually probably not hurt right now.
Exactly, and then probably suspended for the first half against Sanford. So he did exactly how the rules say you should do it, and the way he's being coached to do it.
All right, Terrence, we'll hear more from you on this game. It's our Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Before we're done, we'll also hear from Georgia coach Kirby Smart. We'll check scores from around the SEC. We have a lot going on here this evening, and obviously a lot of that includes your phone calls there too, or at least your Zoom calls. So click the link in one of our comment sections. Join us live. Our buddy Lesko, who's always a great commenter on YouTube each and every day, a big part of what we do here on Dog Nation Daily, joins us here in the Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Lesko, what'd you think about these dogs here today?
BA, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I've been excited about season starting, but this one here just feels different. Stetson Bennett seems like he's the man. Set a personal record passing yards, moved the ball around. And even late in the game, we got to see these guys that we've been anticipating get in the game and show out. Darnell Washington looked good. This is just it just feels different, BA.
Let's go. I think that's a great call, and I think that's exactly right. I think it does feel different. And, compare this year over year. Now, I think that Clemson that Georgia played last year is a much better team than this Oregon team is. I don't have any respect for Oregon, the Pac-12 whatsoever. So I think Clemson from a year ago is clearly a better opponent. But imagine the way you felt after last year's game compared to the way you feel now. And by the way, last year's season opener is the kind of game that resulted in a national championship when it was all said and done. But Georgia didn't score an offensive touchdown last year and kind of had to fight and scratch and claw for everything it got here today. So for Lesko to say, hey, I think it feels better now than it's ever felt before, there's an element to which you kind of understand, why that's true. And Terrence, here's the other thing that I would say about what kind of goes down today is that if you're a Georgia fan, I'm talking about a hardcore partisan Georgia fan, the way that I am and the way that a lot of the folks who tune in and watch is. If you could have written the script, I don't know that you could have written it differently in terms of, Stetson Bennett really makes a statement. The Georgia defense that's been doubted really makes a statement. You want a bell cow running back? Well, it looks like you got one with Kenny McIntosh, although a lot of what he did today was through the air, but still, he looks like a playmaker. Freshman sort of coming from all over the place. These tight ends that we all have the curiosity about, they do their thing there as well. It's almost like fan service where it's like if you wrote fan fiction version of Georgia football today, this was kind of like the fans' wildest dream for what a game could look like, and it actually played out in reality. I think what Lesko brings up there is a pretty good point. Do you agree, Terrence?
Oh, I think so. I expected Stetson to play well. I really did. I think being a 3-year starter, understanding everything that Coach Monken and staff is trying to do, I think that means something. That goes a long way. Having a 3-year starter and having another coach on the field that the coaches trust, that if they call a play and give Stetson the leeway to change it if he sees something in film prep. He sees something and he's been coached to get them in a better play. That the coaches feel comfortable giving Stetson those options. And we saw today that Stetson was magical out there today. I've never seen, I'm telling you, in the Georgia uniform, I've probably never seen a quarterback play any better than he did today. And he put on a show, and it's his team. He's the leader, and I think everyone is going to fall in line. And I say this about Stetson. You know, he is not the measurable that everyone is looking for. I know everyone wants him to be replaced. A lot of Georgia fans want him to be replaced. But one thing you can't replace is the leadership and how the guys rally around him. That's one of the things you can't replace in a quarterback. You can go get a quarterback, and if the team, offensively, defensively, and special teams, will not fight for that guy, then your team is not going to be successful. This team will fight for him, and that's what I love about Stetson, because he's a leader, and people want to play for him.
We'll take some more calls here. Isha is one of our great commenters, and he joins us here on the Dog Nation Videos channel tonight as part of the Dog Nation Postgame Show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Isha, thanks for your call, and what do you think about these Dogs here today?
Wonderful sight. I couldn't wait to watch this game. Didn't disappoint me. I'm glad they did well. and just the totality of offense is just amazing. I mean, I kind of expected that it would do that. Kind of thought I saw it slow, but to go 7 for 7 and 7 touchdowns and 7 drives is amazing. And even when we had the backup come in, when Beck came in, offense still flowed. And that's what you're looking at. All the running backs did what they had to do. I mean, it wasn't great running lanes, but because they stacked the box, but they still stayed in there and got some yards and made our offense a little bit more spectacular. The defense, being that we didn't know what Oregon was going to do, I think they came out and made some great tackles. They kind of got caught up in the run a little bit. They got a bunch of yards, but overall, I can't complain. The only thing is, from now on, playing the teams they played, you're going to see the defense stats get way better than they did because of the teams we have to play. And so it's just going to get better. And that's all you can look for. Hello, Terrence, and hello, BA, by the way. Glad to see y'all. Glad to see everybody else on here.
Well, we're glad to see you there as well. We appreciate your commentary. I think you bring up some really good points, and there's no doubt in terms of, what Georgia's going to face in the toughest games is going to, be a part of here later on this year. This Oregon team, not really any kind of example of what that, is going to be about. I think you really bring up a really good point. But, Terrence, the other thing that he brings up that I think is such a strong point here is we talk a lot about complementary football and the way in which offense kind of feeds off defense. And some of that is about the field position and the things that one unit does to sort of set up the other for success. But how about from the standpoint of just building confidence? How much more fun is practice going to be now because the fact this offense came out and converted on 7 of its first 7 drives to lead to all those points? And yeah, I know Kirby Smart's going to find something to be mad about. That's what coaches do, and Georgia fans are glad he does it that way because it's obviously one of the things that's leading to so much success for UGA. But when you know you had a game like this, and when the offense really clicked, there's just something fun about playing well on offense. Right. When you have that going on for you, how much more, I guess, confidence does that allow these Georgia players to build around Stetson and building themselves there too, knowing that really it all worked today? It's got to be a major confidence boost, I would imagine.
Most definitely. I mean, when you have, especially offensive and defensive, clicking like that, I know defensive players love when you go out there and just score. Now, they know that when the score gets to over 21, the run game goes out the window. Now they just can pin their ears back and just go to work, go in pass rush. You don't have to worry about the run as much. So defensively, once those guys are scoring offensively, those defensive guys know now I just got to pin my ears back and just go to work and pass rush. And, I mean, I didn't expect this type of dominance from Georgia today. I can tell you I thought we would win, but I just didn't think we would dominate Oregon the way we did.
It's a great point, Terrence. We appreciate your commentary today. It's part of our Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. As Isha said a moment ago, it's great having Terrence back a part of this again, and great seeing all of you in the comment section here today and actually getting a chance to hear from you there, too. What a fun way to celebrate a 49-3 win for the Georgia Bulldogs against the Oregon Ducks here today. And, of course, you can celebrate this yourself as well with that really cool T-shirt from our friends at 7-6 Apparel. Got the score 49-3 on it. I have no idea how any of this works. How do you have a T-shirt that already has the score on it? I'm amazed by that technology, but that's what 7-6 Apparel is all about. We're happy to team with them here at Dog Nation, and we want to invite you to get your T-shirt to let everybody know. SEC versus Pac-12, it ain't no contest. It is Dogs on top in Atlanta. The school that runs this state, even when somebody from the Pac-12 tries to sneak in, they may have snuck in, they may have walked in, but they are limping home, and you can honor that with some Southern Fried Duck on your T-shirt from our friends at 7-6 Apparel. You can find them online at 76.com, and you can get that T-shirt and show it off to everybody, what you saw here inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium here today. And by the way, the fun, the celebration going to keep right on going there, too, because next Saturday, and we don't get but a few of these, we're going to take full advantage of this. We are back between the hedges again for the home opener against Samford. And, of course, we'll be a part of that at the UGA Bookstore after the game with our Dog Nation postgame show. But before the game, don't forget, great autograph opportunities. Malcolm Mitchell, the former Dog wide receiver, what an incredible personal story he has. Now 90 years old as of today, Vince Dooley had the folks singing happy birthday to him here today. You can get a chance to meet him and get his autograph. And, of course, the legendary national championship quarterback for these Georgia Bulldogs, good friend of mine, Buck Ballou, going to be on hand there as well. That all goes down next week. So go to UJBookstore.com, find out more details about that, and you can be a part of an incredible, incredible event next Saturday as we return back to Athens between the hedges. The last time we were there, flag was being raised, national championship was being celebrated. I guess G-Day was the most recent time, but you get the point. We're back for the first regular season game for these reigning national champions, and we're excited about that. Something else we're excited about right now is taking your phone calls and your conversation live and interactive on the air here, so we appreciate that. And how about Joseph? Joseph, you're next up on the Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Thanks for your time, and give us your opinion on these dogs.
Me? Well, I just
yes, sir. Go ahead.
It's been, sorry about that. I just want to say it's a blessing to be a Dogs fan, and I really enjoyed the game. And I'm hoping going forward this season that we keep on that momentum, the drive, and making great plays. That's all I got to say. Go Dogs.
It's a great phone call, and I appreciate you weighing into us here today. And, Terrence, what he's talking about there is kind of touching on something I've also talked about a little bit myself, which is that I think there's a tendency to believe, and listen, I don't have a chip on my shoulder about this. I understand the nature of this, and I'm sure I've talked about other college football teams the way that I hear people talking about mine now. I'm totally understanding all of that. But I think there's a tendency to want to believe that what happened last year was somehow the end of history, that Georgia had been waiting for 40-plus years, finally got its national championship, and you sort of close the book on that and say, well, that story is done. But in fact, what happened in January of 2022 in Indianapolis is not necessarily the end of an old story. In a lot of ways, it could be the start of a new story. The same way that at one point in time we talked about Clemsoning and how Clemson was always going to kind of give a game away, and eventually they kind of erased that because they won multiple national championships. Well, I think this discussion around Georgia was probably a little bit different than that. But I do believe that with what happened last year in the national championship, there is a chance that Georgia is just starting a fresh new chapter in its history. And today's game looked very much akin to that. A team that's dominant again after winning a national championship a year ago, that's exactly what you would expect them to look like, the way they just played here in this game here. And so as our caller kind of points out, in a lot of ways, this sort of feels like the start of something new that began with the national championship a year ago, but seems to be continuing with full momentum here right now. I think that's a really good point. And Terrence, I'm sure you probably agree with that.
Have a national championship team with the quarterback coming back, with the offensive coordinator coming back. That's what you're supposed to look like. I'm going to continue to say, did I think we was going to dominate them to that capacity? No, but that's what I expected for our team to look like. The more dominant team. I could be lying if I say I thought we would hold them out of the end zone because I did think they would at least score 14 points. But that was a dominant performance from a team and what Kirby said is really sticking out to me. Just like he said, Georgia will not be hunted. We're still going to be the hunters, and they played like that tonight.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think that's a really good point. That's kind of the mindset, the attitude that Georgia brought into this game here today, and it was a great thing to be able to see. And also looking on here online, and Michael Carvell doing a great job of getting some of those images and pictures from that game on our screen right now. So if you want to relive that, it's a great thing. I also invite you to relive our great Dog Nation Duck Hunt tailgate from prior to the game today. Go to the Dog Nation YouTube page right now. You can go back and rewatch what went down there a little earlier today. A great dog walk. The players like walking right through our tailgate. It's been quite a festive day around here, and it continues with our Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Tanner joins us right now. Tanner, thanks for your time. How'd you feel about the Dogs today? 49-3 over the Oregon Ducks. What'd you think about it?
Oh, man, it was awesome. Yeah, we just left Atlanta. You know, I'll be honest with you. I knew our offense was going to be that explosive, but that defense, they really showed out today, didn't they?
Yeah, Tanner, they really did, and I appreciate the call, and I appreciate your thoughts on that. And, Terrence, to me, I think the point that Tanner's making there is such a good one in that, hey, you know, offense gets you excited, and you love to see that, and when ESPN shows the highlights later on tonight, they're going to show all of those touchdowns and, you know, all the ways in which Georgia built the 49, points here today.
You know, offense.
I don't know. Something kind of cut in there for a second. I apologize. Maybe I wasn't hearing correctly. But the point that Tanner was making there about the Georgia defense, in terms of really reestablishing Georgia as a national championship level team, I almost wonder if holding Oregon to 3 isn't a bigger statement than scoring 49, just given the regression that some folks expected to see. Thank you very much. Just the regression that I think folks expected to see from the UGA defense. What do you think?
You know, on TV, some of the experts just think, you know, we having 15 players drafted that the defense would drop off.
Terrence, are you there?
Today they made a statement. Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, just from the pundits on TV, you know, just expected that the Georgia defense was drop off because of how many guys we had drafted last year. But that's a testament of the way Kirby have recruited and developed these players. Again, I'm talking about Smile Monday. He's another guy that I'm excited about. He's another fast athlete playing linebacker. I'm waiting on Jalen Walker, the freshman, to get some action. So Cersei got some playing time today. So the way we rotated today, I've never seen when you really rotate the whole front 7. I think the only person today who did not get rotated when the game was in hand was Chris Smith. I think he's the leader of the defense. But everyone else was rotating. Keelan Ringo. Everyone else was rotating, and they're going to keep the guys fresh. And that leads for the team to play hard when you can rotate that many guys and the production does not drop off.
I'm going to take more phone calls in a moment. I also want to read some comments here. It's the YouTube comment section that I have pulled up. I apologize for our other comment sections. Haven't really read from you yet. We are in the stadium, and sometimes internet can be a little spotty when it comes to stuff like that. But I want to read some YouTube comments, and Terrence, I'll let you respond here. R. Harris says, offense is fun, but the guys around the quarterback and receivers deserve more credit. And yeah, I mean, I think that's the case. I thought the Georgia offensive line in particular today, Terrence, had an outstanding day. And we saw, you mentioned rotation on defense. We saw a ton of rotation on the offensive line with, you know, Marius Mims getting involved, with Warren McClendon playing some at left tackle. And, that rotation and getting those guys involved there, but really doing whatever was asked for them today and establishing. I mean, Bennett had just months to throw if he wanted to. I think when you look at the units that performed the best today, I think you would have to make a case for the Georgia offensive line maybe having as good a day as anybody did.
I think so. I think the only time that Stetson may have got pressure was on the touchdown pass that he threw to Ladd McConkey. We talked about him being poised in the pocket. We talked about him looking confident in the pocket. But that only comes from the offensive line giving him protection to sit back there and go through his progressions and hit the open guy. So you have to give the offensive line their flowers as well, because if they don't perform well, the Georgia offense or any offense does not perform well. And it starts with them. And they never get the love they deserve, but we're going to give them their love today. Coach Serson did a great job at offensive line, they look well prepared as well for all the stunts and the blitzes and all the creative ways Dan Lanning could get to the quarterback. So let's get the guys' offensive line their love today because they did a great job.
So Crow King 123 on YouTube said what was my favorite part of the game. For me, first touchdown with Ladd McConkey had, leading the way on that was Brock Bowers. And I think that Bowers may be a top 10 pick eventually, but he was out there blocking his you-know-what off. You know, he basically put an Oregon guy into the stands, and you're thinking, you know, here's a guy that's cashing in an NIL. He had 13 touchdowns a year ago, but he's out there blocking like his life depended on it. And to me, Terrence, stuff like that just speaks to what we love about Georgia. It's the team attitude, the team mindset that they just kind of bring to the table. And, you know, Brock Bowers may be the single most, I don't want to say talented because that's a hard, thing to debate, but certainly in terms of accomplishments last year, Bowers had an amazing year, and yet he's out there blocking as well as anybody. On that first touchdown, I really enjoyed that, and then follow that up with the Starks interception. Those are my favorite moments from the game because I think they set the tone for what the rest of the day was going to be.
Oh, most definitely. When you got your best player out there doing the dirty work, out there sacrificing himself for the team, that goes a long way. I mean, even in film study, once we see that, you got Brock out there, laying out on the line for Georgia. And we all know how the talent he has. He's going to be able to get his touchdowns. So he's probably going to break my touchdown record before he leaves. But he's also a team guy that's going to go out there and do whatever it takes for Georgia and not just for Brock Bowers.
All right, coming up in a couple of minutes, we're going to hear from Kirby Smart, his post-game press conference a moment ago. What did he have to say about the win today? Stay close for that. Also, if you're on hold, stay right there. We're going to get to you, too, including David right now, who joins us on the Dog Nation post-game show, presented by the UGA Bookstore. David, thanks for your time. Let us know your thoughts about a big 49-3 win for UGA here today.
BA, man, I thought it was definitely a great win. I'm very excited at the beginning of this season. Unlike any season before, even last year, I don't think the excitement was quite what it was this year. I sat and I watched, and I noticed that it didn't look like we blitzed as much. And I think that may have been part of the game plan. I just think he knew that Lanning would definitely have something for us if we jumped out and just tried to run all over the field. And so I think they just kind of played a little conservative, played back, and it was definitely a recipe for success tonight.
Well, it's a good point. I appreciate the phone call. And this is going to sound like I'm being funny or snarky or anything like that, and I'm really not. I was sitting next to Connor Riley during the game, and I think he and I both were kind of of the same mind on this. Kenny Dillingham is the Oregon offensive coordinator. I actually thought that Oregon had a pretty good game plan. I think the game plan they tried to use today is about the closest thing you would ever have to being able to work. They clearly wanted Nix on the move. They wanted to try to get the ball out of the flats. They wanted to get the ball away from the middle of the field. And even without Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, and these guys here, it's still essentially the way you want to attack Georgia, which is get the ball out in kind of some open space in the flats area. See if you can make a younger, relatively inexperienced player, maybe make a missed tackle, and then you can create a big game that way. I think that Kenny Dillingham's probably a pretty good hire for Oregon offensive coordinator. And as silly as it sounds, I think their offensive game plan had as about as good a chance of working as anything might. It's just that Georgia didn't buckle under any of this. And I think because Oregon was getting rid of the football as quickly as they were, that was going to reduce Georgia's opportunity to get sacks and get after the quarterback. In fact, that had been one of my keys to the game going in there. Let's see how much pass pressure Georgia was able to get. Ultimately, they really probably didn't get all that much here today, but ultimately it didn't seem to cost them that much. There were obviously moments in which Georgia was in the backfield making things hard on Nix, and certainly Nix didn't help his own cause plenty of times. But this was one of those days that the pace with which Oregon was playing, the way in which they were trying to get Nix out on the move and getting him to get rid of the ball quickly, I think it reduced the opportunity for Georgia sacks today. So from that standpoint, it's maybe a box checked in terms of the effectiveness of the game plan, but obviously beyond that, you just saw Georgia players playing a very sound version of football. And, Terrence mentioned Smile Mondin a moment ago. I thought that Smile Mondin had some real impressive moments here. And we've talked about what we've seen from guys in the secondary. And, one of the guys that's earned a lot of buzz, throughout campus, Kamari Laster, kind of locking things down there over there. And fun to see, guys like Mikael Williams getting involved today. This is just a Georgia defense right now that's so deep, that has so many weapons, and it's so exciting to see where this group might go next. So, Terrence Edwards, stay where you are. We're going to get right back to you. You callers coming in to join us here via Zoom, y'all stay right where you are there as well. You've heard me talk plenty, though, today. How about we hear from the head man himself? It's the Georgia coach, Kirby Smart, from his post-game press conference a couple of moments ago. His thoughts in the game. Let's hear that right now as part of our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore.
All right, we're ready to begin with Coach Smart. We'll ask him for some general comments on the game, and then we'll take your questions. I think we have a couple of floor microphones, so if you'll raise your hand for questions, and we'll get one of those to you. Coach?
Yeah, I'd open by saying that Gary Stokin and the people in this event organization's first class. They do an unbelievable job. I love playing in this game. I love playing in this venue. Our kids embraced it. I thought our fans embraced it. They do a tremendous job, and it's really a credit to the people with the Chick-fil-A kickoff game and what they do. So never played here that it wasn't a great atmosphere, and it certainly was today, college football.
Hey, raise your hand if you have questions. We'll get a microphone to you. Let's start right in the middle. Second row in the middle.
Kirby, I know you guys try to prepare for everything. Could you have imagined a better execution and just performance by your offense in particular, but your defense didn't give up a touchdown today either?
I was really proud of the way our kids played. You know, we tried to talk about coming out and playing as we were hunting, and we wanted to play connected football. That was all we talked about all week. We're going to play connected. We're going to play aggressive. We're going to be the hunter. Kids kind of bought into that theme, and they like playing here. Offensively, we did execute at a high level, which you have an experienced quarterback and you have experienced players, you can do that. Coach Monken and his offensive staff had a good plan. They played well. Defensively, we were a little more bend, but don't break. You know, at the half, we both had 14 first downs. Really had not stopped them. I think either team had punted. So some opportunistic turnovers really helped the defense.
Next question on the left front row.
Coach, you talked defensively. One of the players that stood out was freshman Malachi Starks. What did you see from him in this game that you'd like and want to improve? And what went through your mind when he got that interception?
Well, he's been probably our most productive defensive back all camp, which gets lots of hands on balls, batted balls, he knocked down balls, he had picks. He's a football player, and we wanted to get him in the game early, and fortunately it was a play where he was one-on-one, and he made a really good play on the ball. Incredible athlete, has good speed. He's got a lot to learn, and I thought he played with great composure today, and he's a really talented player.
Next question on the far left. Go ahead, yeah.
Coach, you had 10 different players catch a pass today and 5 different players score touchdowns. What does that say about the depth of your skill positions?
Well, I don't know that we have great depth. I know that we can spread the ball around. We don't have the depth we need, especially at skill positions. Talking running back, wide receiver. We've got good depth at tight end, but we don't have the kind of depth we need at those other positions. That's the product of Stetson being able to get to first, second, third, read, and then also scrambling and making plays with his feet. I can only imagine how you feel calling a game against a guy that when hits somebody back there, they don't tackle. And on top of the fact he knows where the ball should go. You have an accurate passer, good protection. It's really hard. It's hard to defend.
Next question, front row.
Kirby, I know, especially after one game, you're going to want to keep expectations in check, but things are going to...
Expectations are definitely already in check. Don't have to worry about that.
I was going to say externally they're going to be astronomical. So is there anything you can say now after that one game in terms of how good this team could be or what the ceiling could be?
Externally, we don't listen to. That's the key word you just said. Externally, there's expectations every year. We embrace expectations. We hunt. We go do the best job we can, and if it falls short, it falls short. But I don't look at it from the expectation standpoint. I look at it like, what can we do better? How do we improve? How do we get more players playing winning football? Because everybody in this room knows we're going to lose somebody. Somebody's going to be injured throughout the year, and how do we get them better? But the expectations I have is for our guys to play at their best and our coaches to prepare at their best, and I think that our guys really did that this game. Question on the second row.
Hey, Coach. I was wondering if you could comment on the D-line and their ability to get pressure today.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think we didn't have any sacks, did we? No. It's hard to sack Bo Nix. hard. He's smart. He knows where to go with the ball. Their plan on third down was to throw the ball before you got there. We had some pressures called, and it doesn't matter if you throw the ball in 2.1 seconds. And they screened us a lot, so you're not going to get many sacks in that. We've got good rushers. We got guys that'll be productive, but we knew going into the game he's hard to get on the ground. I mean, he probably got out of 3 or 4 sacks, and our guy got out of 3 or 4 sacks. That's the difference in college football right now, is not having those negative lost yardage plays, and you just throw it away and you go with the next play.
Question in front row.
Coach, Christopher Smith, right before he had the big interception, had the horse collar tackle penalty. But what does that say, and what kind of message does that give to the rest of the defense of, next play, forget about the last one?
Yeah, he embodies that. He's next play mentality. That's all we talk about is next play. We had a guy jump offside, next play. We had a guy hold, next play. So you got to play the game. And if you have too many next play mistakes, you won't win football games. But you have to play the next play as if nothing happened. And I thought, we had several guys make some mistakes today that overcame those.
Okay, next question in the back.
Dog Nation YouTube page. You can hear the rest of the Kirby Smart press conference, so you can watch all of that there in its entirety. But Terrence Edwards, I want to bring you back in on what we just heard from Kirby Smart there a moment ago, saying that during the preseason that Malachi Starks had been one of Georgia's most productive defensive backs, and obviously that's one of the reasons why he gets the nod and the trust with that playing time here today. And also kind of talking about, actually, it's ironic that what Kirby talked about there about the pass rush and kind of what happened was one of the things our callers brought up there a moment ago. So I'm not sure how much of the Kirby Smart you got to hear there a moment ago, but how about Smart's praise of Starks, and how about his overall assessment of the game? And by the way, also the unwillingness to concede that this was some sort of great moment for UGA, knowing this team's going to come back and work on a lot more after this. That was clearly Kirby being Kirby there in that press conference, that he's not going to take a bow after week 1. He's got 14 more football games after this that are definitely on his mind.
Most definitely. I mean, we got a young team, so he really have to temper the expectations, temper the praise that this team is going to get. They're going to get all the love on all social media platforms, newspaper outlets. They're going to tell you how great you are. So you got to continue to stress that it's one game. We haven't done anything. This team haven't won a national championship yet. But if we could just continue to play like we did, we continue to prepare, and those goals are still in place. Like I said, I've watched Malachi since he was at Jefferson. I just thought the young man was just a special talent. And he's continued to prove us all right in that aspect. And with Kirby, I mean, he really said it. I think the team played a complete football game today. And that's something that I was going to talk about for us to bend, don't break. Oregon finished with 21 first downs in this game. So our Georgia defense really did a good job not limiting big plays, explosive plays. But we did give up some yardage, but that's expected. We're not going to be the defense we were last year. We're going to give up some yards, but how do you respond when things are not going your way? That's the next play mentality that Kirby talked about.
Terrence, great stuff. If you're on hold, we'll try to take one more round of phone calls before we're done here and get ready to wrap up, because at this point in time, I think we're about to get kicked out of Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They're about to give us you don't have to go home, but you got to get up out of here. I think they're about to tell us that here in just a couple of moments. So let me get ready to do that with your phone calls for one final time here. Also, let's go cruise around the SEC, courtesy of Royal Caribbean. We do it each and every day on Dog Nation Daily. It was so much fun to have the Royal Caribbean folks with us here today, too, for our Dog Nation Duck Hunt tailgate. We had a great booth set up, a lot of folks signing up for that Dog Nation cruise. Who knows? Maybe we can even get Terrence Edwards on a Dog Nation cruise here at some point in time there as well. But either way, we hope to have you join us on that Dog Nation cruise coming up. And obviously, our great friend Jessica Slater, who's doing such great work. You can see her on the screen there. She's a travel agent that just knows Royal Caribbean so well. She's like me. She loves Royal Caribbean. She loves recommending Royal Caribbean to folks. And she's the travel agent that we're trusting to book our I should say almost at our first ever. It's actually our second ever cruise with Dog Nation coming up here this year in the springtime, April of 2023. We're going to be on and doing that. So Jessica Slater, the one to know for all that. Check her out online, dreamvacations.com/JSlater. You can also see her telephone number right there on the screen in front of you. You can reach out to her, and she's going to get you booked up for that cruise with Dog Nation later on this spring when we are all celebrating what might be, who knows, another championship. Our last night of this cruise is going to be just like the one from last year was. where it's going to be the NFL draft. And I'm guessing, based on the way this team played today, a lot of these guys may be also having their name called by Roger Goodell there that night. But the point is, we're cruising around the SEC, courtesy of Royal Caribbean. I want to give you some scores from around the SEC right now. Right now, a better day for a Pac-12 foe against the SEC than what happened here between Georgia and Oregon. I've got Utah 10-7 over Florida here in the second quarter. So the Utes doing pretty well here on the road and battling Florida right now. They are with the lead there, 10-7. Kentucky in a little bit of a fight with Miami of Ohio right now, 10-10 in the second quarter. All those folks that had Kentucky as a possible threat to UGA, I don't know where that's going to come from if they're battling the Red Hawks on a day in which Georgia's beating the number 11 team in the country 49-3. But nonetheless, I got Vanderbilt 21-7 over Elon. If this score holds, when was the last time you could call Vanderbilt 2-0? They were obviously dominant week 0, winning at Hawaii, and now on top of Elon here right now. Alabama's up 17 nothing over Utah State in the first quarter. You've got a little bit of a weather delay for Mississippi State and Memphis. Don't forget, this is a revenge game for the Bulldogs after losing to Memphis in a kind of controversial fashion on a bad officiating call a little earlier last year. So a little bit of a revenge game for Mississippi State, and then no score first quarter between Georgia State and South Carolina. That's kind of a relatively small point spread. South Carolina favored by less than 2 touchdowns. There's been some attention to that game. Obviously, Georgia State gave a scare to Auburn a year ago, beat Tennessee a couple of seasons before that. So Georgia State against the SEC sometimes can be dangerous. We'll keep our eye on the debut for Spencer Rattler there in a South Carolina uniform, and we'll say that is your cruising around the SEC with scores around the SEC. Also, Notre Dame, Ohio State in action right now, too. Let me give you a couple more scores here really quick. You've got, let's see if I can do this and talk at the same time. So top 25 scores of note outside the SEC. We'll give you a couple of those. BYU on top big at halftime against USF right now. These are not top 25 scores, but nonetheless. 38-7. Some folks have wondered, hey, would BYU have trouble traveling west to east and coming into the humidity? Apparently that's not the case there on that. Let's see what else. Yeah, so Arkansas gets the win 31-24 over Cincinnati today. That's a big top 25 win for an Arkansas team in week 1 against the Cincinnati Bearcats, right there kind of on that point spread there a bit too on that. So that's a big one there for Arkansas, getting that win over Cincinnati, and we'll follow some of these other scores as they kind of roll through here there as well. So, Terrence, as we get ready to wrap up, and we'll maybe take some more callers here too before we're done, how about some final thoughts from you? Anything that thus far we have not hit on yet that you think's crucial to bring up? We heard from Kirby Smart. We've heard from a lot of Georgia fans tonight. What else on your mind before we get ready to wrap up what's been a terrific night for these Dogs?
I just think it's a depth on both sides of the ball, how we rotated so many players. So that's to let you know that the trust factor is very high with all these players. The preparation must have been great to get so many players in the game early, not when the game was out of hand. The rotation is key. I think a few times last year, Alabama caught us in rotation, and we wasn't able to rotate. But today, rotation seems there. I just like the depth of this team. I just like the makeup. I know it's one game, and a lot of people like to jump off, but you see a lot of great things from players that we didn't expect. I mean, Marcus Jackson had a good. Jordan Meeks had some. Like offense, we just got experience. Kieran Jackson, we got experience, and on defensive side of the ball, we're gonna have some no-name guys who probably didn't play much last year, but their time is now. This is the reason they came to Georgia. So I'm just ready to see. I know we got Stanford the next game, but I'm just ready to see the South Carolina game to see how we're going to react to an environment where we have to go up there with Spencer Rattler. So let's see how they react each week, and I think they're going to react just fine.
I think that's a great point, Terrence, and I appreciate that. Let's also take one final comment from our callers there as well. Caller, go ahead and give us your thought here, and we'll make you our final caller of the night on what has been a very good night for the Dogs. How'd you feel about UGA here this evening?
Brandon, I felt great about UGA this evening. I thought that we talked on Dog Nation Daily about how many casual Georgia fans thought that the Oregon offense might show up, the Chip Kelly version, and I think that version did show up. And the good news was it was wearing red and black. That had me excited. It's got me super excited about next Saturday. to welcome the national champions back into the stadium at UGA and to stand and cheer for, this year's edition of the Bulldogs. I'm super excited about that. So, great day for the Dogs, and I can't wait for next Saturday.
That's an awesome point and a great way to close out our show. Can y'all even imagine what Between the Hedge is going to be like next Saturday with all of those? I mean, it's going to be 93,000 in the building. I don't care if they're playing Sanford or playing the Bears. The fact of the matter is that stadium is going to be packed to the rafters, and the tailgating that's going to be going on before that, the scene pregame here today was amazing. But next Saturday is a chance to do it in your own stadium and welcome back these Dogs as the reigning national champs with that flag flying overhead, with all that national title gear in Athens for the first time. I cannot wait for that. It's such a great point, and I think the point you make there as well about when we did talk about this on Dog Nation Daily this week, that, hey, at one point in time you thought of Auburn as this kind of like, I should say Oregon as this very high, powered, fast-paced offense when it was coached by Chip Kelly, or years later when it was quarterbacked by Marcus Mariota. That's kind of what you thought of as Oregon. The version of that offense today, and this is a great point by a caller, it was Georgia that looked that way, and that's a great thing to be able to see. By the way, they also turned the lights out a couple of minutes ago, and I guess the camera that I'm using is nicer than I realize it is, because I don't know that you can really tell how dark it is on the basis of what's showing up on the camera. Maybe it looks darker on your screen than it looks on my monitor here, but it's actually not so bad. So it's almost completely dark here, so that's our cue. We probably need to sign off. Terrence Edwards, one final time, thank you so much for being here tonight. I love your insight, Terrence. You're as dog as it comes. You're a DGD in every great sense, and also just a terrific analyst when it comes to breaking this stuff down. Thank you for spending time with us here this evening, Terrence.
Thank you. No problem. Glad to be back on.
And for all of our callers here tonight who I thought made this a great experience, your insight on this game was terrific. Obviously, it's fun talking about a game like this. Why would you not want to? And you guys really added a lot to that. So thanks for being here. We'll see you Saturday at the UGA bookstore. What a great time that's going to be. Before the game, a lot of autographs. Buck Bellew, Vince Dooley, former wide receiver Malcolm Mitchell. After the game, we'll be up on the second floor for our UGA bookstore Dog Nation postgame show. We showed you some of the Kirby Smart press commentary this evening. You can go to the Dog Nation YouTube page, see that in its entirety. Make sure you read the stuff that Mike Griffith is writing at DogNation.com. Read the stuff that Connor Riley's working on and writing at DogNation.com. Really detailed, intense breakdowns. If you're like me, it's like on Sunday, you just sort of crash, and like I literally just sort of lay there with my phone and just read everything I can about the game, and you're the same way. And so just know when you're like me and you sort of stumble out of church and, find the first couch you can land on, just know DogNation.com's got you hooked up with everything you need for your post-game coverage. So make sure you check that out. I'm going to say bye to you. Rarely are we happier than we are tonight. Dogs on top. 49-3 over the Oregon Ducks. And if there's somebody in your life, whether it be a Bama fan who said Georgia was a one-hit wonder, or an Ohio State fan who laughed because the Buckeyes were ranked ahead of the Dogs, whoever you have in your life, if you want to show them what it's all about, go to our friends at 76.com and get the really cool, really, really fun Southern Fried Duck t-shirt that's already got the score on it. We're doing that with our friends from 7-6, so you can check that out with them and go ahead and pick one of those up here today. We will see you back Monday for Dog Nation Daily, but for now, on our Dog Nation postgame show, presented by the UGA Bookstore. Have a great night, everybody.